Everybody for coming out. Just wanted to start by saying this plan that we've worked on over the previous months is pretty broad and deep. It's got 50 or 60 actions that can be taken to move towards your Ready for 100 goals. But we're not going to hit all of that tonight. We have about 30 minutes, maybe 35, that we're going to hit some highlights. And then after that, we'll leave time for questions and hopefully answers too, but at least time for the questions. Another thing I wanted to highlight is that we're not going to be implementing this plan all in the next 12 months. This is a plan to get to 100% renewable electricity by 2035 and net zero carbon emissions for transportation and heating as well by 2050. So we have time, but getting things listed and prioritized was a big part of this plan. And there are going to be hurdles along the way. This isn't necessarily easy. It's going to take work. It's going to take investment, but it can be done. And we're really, really impressed with the commitment that Radner has made, not just for the Ready for 100, but to actually develop a plan like this at this time. Good news on top of all that is that a lot of the things that are recommended in the plan actually do save energy and save money as well. So they can pay for some of the cost of doing the right thing here. These initiatives also create family sustaining jobs. So they're good for the economy. So let's go to the first slide here, just as a way of introduction. I founded Practical Energy Solutions back in 2006, and we recently merged with Spot Stevens and McCoy, a full service engineering firm. We have a lot of resources at our disposal. This is a list of our services. It's actually in about the order that we usually recommend you do things when you're evaluating your buildings. Do an audit, benchmark it, do an operational assessment, come up with a strategic energy plan, look for capital projects, design your new projects and implement them, find financing, all of that. An important element of this kind of an initiative. Go ahead, next slide. So my name is Paul Spiegel. I'm Division Manager for the Energy and Sustainability Service Division of Spot Stevens and McCoy, but we are still operating as Practical Energy Solutions. And I want to introduce then Kate Lyons.
Hi everyone, super excited to be here and share the plan with you today. My name is Kate Lyons. I'm an energy analyst with the Division of Practical Energy Solutions in Spot Stevens and McCoy. And I recently graduated from Temple University, where I was involved in a lot of sustainability efforts there. And I actually grew up around the region, so it's great to be a part of the change that all of these municipalities are creating. So I'll pass it over to Lindsay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lindsay Velasquez. I'm a mechanical engineer who's been working with Paul for 6 years. I'm a proud graduate of the Sustainable Engineering program at Villanova, so really grateful to be able to help the township that gave so much to me, and we really look forward to hearing your thoughts on the plan tonight.
Okay. So back in February, 2 full years ago, Radnor Township joined a lot of the other municipalities throughout the country that had committed to this Ready for 100 goal that Sierra Club developed. It's a program that they promoted, again, across the country, and about 170 communities have signed on to this program. What I'm really impressed about is that over 30 of those 170 are here in southeastern PA. And that speaks to a couple of things. It speaks to the quality and the investment of time and effort that the Sierra Club made in reaching out to people and explaining the program and giving them guidance and training. And I believe it also speaks a lot to type of people that live here in southeastern PA. They care about the environment, they care about their health, they are committed to their communities, and I'm just amazed that, you know, about a quarter or 20% of the communities that engaged in this are right here in southeastern PA. Radner was one of the early ones to commit, and what we find is once you commit, then then it's time to get started on the work. You know, we've had all the discussions about climate change, and now it's time to do something about it. Next slide. So Practical Energy was hired last year to prepare this plan and to work with the green team here in Radner and develop, I guess, a strategy and a number of actions and implementation projects that the community can do to move towards those goals. And I definitely want to acknowledge the hard work that Sarah Pillar and Robin Mann have put in. They've been our main contacts with the township, and they've just been great to work with. So thank you. Turn it over to Kate.
So now I'm going to talk about the actual plan that we prepared. Just as an overview, so you have an idea of what's actually in the plan. If you want to go and read it, you can kind of have a preface through this presentation. So the Renewable Energy and Conservation Plan provides actionable strategies for achieving the Ready for 100 goals in the township that we mentioned earlier. And these strategies generally include and kind of build on one another, starting with energy consumption and addressing and reducing energy consumption, transitioning to all electric system, or as you'll hear us refer to it in this presentation as electrification, and then accelerating the use of carbon-free energy sources. So once you've reduced your energy and transitioned to all electric, using renewable energy in all sectors of the township. And then this is how the plan is structured. So it starts with an introduction, a background, then moves into a background of energy use in Radnor Township. We talk about the focus of the plan, how to build the commitment, and then we go into the actual actions that we recommend, and then mention some technologies moving forward that will be important. And we provided a data map, a graph that represents all the strategies and how they'll help Radner achieve its goals, and helps to visualize what the plan is actually recommending. But first, I want to touch on how climate change is going to affect Radner. In Radner, the local impacts from climate change will be an increase in the number and severity of storms, as you can see on the right, increasing flooding and damaging infrastructure, creating a lot of costs there. And it will also increase the extreme heat events that are seen in Radner, and also decrease air quality as fossil fuels continue to be burnt. Local governments are going to bear the brunt of this problem, and they're going to be the people that need to address climate change and are on the front lines of it. So while it's a big cost, it only accrues as time goes on. So it's something that needs to be addressed now and needs to be taken with a sense of urgency. So I'll pass it over to Lindsay now to talk about how Radner actually uses energy.
Thanks, Kate. Sure, so as Kate mentioned, section 2 of the report highlights how the township uses energy. And we just wanted to cover some of our findings from the utility analysis, as this stage helped us identify which strategies are going to have the highest impact to achieve the Ready for 100 goals. So one of the main findings is that the commercial sector is the highest energy using sector within the township, accounting for over 40% of the total energy use. And we wanted to highlight this because engaging with the commercial sector is going to be very crucial into achieving the strategies and making improvements towards these goals. So leveraging partnerships with the business community in the township is going to be super important. The other high level finding of or the other finding of the utility use analysis is that natural gas is the most consumed fuel in the township, accounting for 37.5% of the total energy use. As Kate mentioned, electrification is going to be a crucial strategy to achieve the Ready for 100 goals. So minimizing the use of natural gas and leveraging strategies which support electrification are going to be very important to achieving the Ready for 100 goals. So this pyramid on the right side, this energy pyramid, shows the high-level overview of the strategies that are going to achieve the Ready for 100 goal. So starting at the bottom of the pyramid, energy efficiency and energy conservation are super important to reduce the energy use in buildings. And there's a lot of opportunities to do that. The EPA estimates that about 30% of energy use in building is wasted. So if we were to implement conservation and energy efficiency technologies in buildings, we could reduce the energy that's used and help property owners and homeowners reduce their energy use spending. So this is also super important because the next stage is converting your building systems to electricity. So this is going to help minimize the use of fossil fuels, mainly in the heating systems within buildings and in vehicles using combustion engines. So this is really important to electrify the heating systems and electric vehicles because that's going to maximize the potential of clean energy and renewable energy that can be used to generate your electricity. So that's going to be a super important strategy to achieve the Ready for 100 goals. And then the third strategy, which is super important, is that once you minimize your energy use through efficiency and conservation and convert to electricity, the next opportunity is to utilize carbon-free energy using renewable energy. So that can be done on site through local renewable energy systems or local solar systems. And that is way more accessible these days with the cost of solar decreasing. It went down about 70% since 2010. So the cost of solar is very affordable right now. Alternatively, clean energy should be accessible through utility scale. So this would allow electricity utilities like Pico to source a higher level of clean energy sources to make it easier to use renewable energy. So those strategies and the approach to implementing those strategies is not a cookie cutter approach. It's going to be different depending on the building owners in the township. For homeowners and business owners that have existing buildings, it would make sense to do an incremental approach and kind of work your way up the pyramid starting from the bottom. It'd be more cost effective to address energy efficiency first and reducing your current demand, and then planning for electrification, conversion, and investment when it's cost effective and in time to replace the equipment. And then once you minimize your load through energy efficiency and electrification, then it would make sense to look at some on-site solar, making sure that your roof is in good condition. So it's more of an incremental approach for homeowners. But for developers that are starting from scratch and building a new building, it makes sense to approach all of those strategies all at the same time. It's going to be most cost effective if you do it all at once rather than retrofitting existing equipment. So if you approach it all at once, you're designing the energy efficiency, electrification, and renewable energy all from the start. So so it's better to just do it in parallel with each other. And I'll kick it over to Kate to go into the tactics of the plan.
So all of our actions in the plan, which we'll get into shortly, are categorized by tactic. And tactics are a way to symbolize the key players and the types of actions that we recommend. Community actions are steps that individuals and businesses can take to achieve the Ready for 100 goals. Municipal action and ordinance programs, as you might guess, are steps that the township can take to legislate change within the township and do that through a more of a legislative lens. Legislative and regulatory advocacy tactics are ways to advocate for legislation and regulations in other levels of government besides the township. So primarily here, we're talking about state advocacy at the state level, but there are some opportunities at the county level. And then finally, for partnership opportunities, These are opportunities for different parties within the township to come together across sectors to create programs that work towards achieving the Ready for 100 goals. This also represents a great opportunity within the region, as Paul was talking about, with so many local municipalities agreeing to Ready for 100 goals. There's great opportunity to partner with local municipalities to share resources, talk about what works, and if there are any energy strategies that can be shared among townships, for example, maybe a solar array, that would be a great partnership opportunity as well. In this plan, we also recommend hiring a sustainability director or on-call consultant. And we believe that this position is very important to the implementation of this plan to make sure that the strategies are being pursued consistently and diligently. And so what this position would do is provide leadership, communicate with the newly instated Delaware County Chief Sustainability Officer, who is overseeing sustainability efforts at the county level, engage stakeholders, and also, very importantly, track progress. So everything's going to be changing. The markets and technology and people's needs are going to be changing over the next 30 years. So it's going to be really important to track progress to assess where Radner is at any point of their progress towards these goals. My mouse keeps disappearing. Okay, the power of collective commitment. So, we know within Radner that collective commitment has led to some really great outcomes, especially on the clean energy frontier. So the Green Team has been really integral in getting this plan together. They've shown collective commitment, and also the students of Radnor School District have shown collective commitment with their demands for clean energy at the school district. We believe that without collective partnership, these goals will not be able to be achieved. So it's really important that everyone in the township comes together, listens to each other, and works together to really work towards these goals. We believe that Radner should launch a community-wide commitment, such as this image here on the left, to engage individuals and businesses to commit to doing something towards the plan and being an active part of it. So now I'll pass it off to Paul to go over some of the advocacy opportunities and get into the actual actions that we recommended throughout the plan.
Thanks, Kate. As Kate mentioned, you see these symbols across the top. Within the plan, those are showing up wherever one of those items is being discussed. So anytime there's a community action item, that symbol shows up next to it. Same thing with the legislative and regulatory advocacy. We list a bunch of things here that are part of that advocacy recommendation, things that are being considered in Harrisburg mostly. I don't think we have anything here that's a federal legislation, but these are all things that are going to support moving towards the goals of this plan. And any one of them can have a big impact, but if you can get all of these things on the books and developed here in the state of Pennsylvania, like they are in many other surrounding states, there's real opportunity to make progress towards this, the goals for Ready for 100. There's a list there, Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, Alternative Energy Portfolio Standard, Act 129, which is the utility rebate program, community solar, a lot of different items here. We're going to go into detail on a couple of them tonight, but we don't have time to jump into all of them, but they are all outlined in the plan. So let's go to the next slide. So CPACE is something that's really gotten some legs recently. The Pennsylvania legislature passed a law enabling this kind of a program to be implemented in the state. It's typically implemented at a county level. And so the city of Philadelphia actually implemented their plan last year at some point, city of Pittsburgh, the same thing. But Recently, Delaware County signed on to the plan. Chester County and Montgomery County are also involved. The real benefits of this, there's a few things. First of all, the loans are paid back through the property tax bill. These are only commercial loans, and it's for upgrades to existing buildings or construction of new buildings. Whatever portion of the building you're developing that is better than the energy code, it's going to perform better than the energy code. That element of the building you can finance through CPACE. So if you're building a new building and you're using high efficiency lighting, you can pay for the lighting with the CPACE loan. So you can use it as part of your financing stack. But one of the real benefits is also that when you take out the loan, you can actually stretch the term of the loan over 20 or more years because it is tied to the property tax bill. And by doing that, you're reducing your monthly and annual payments, often to the point of which your energy savings are greater than your loan payments every year. So with no money out of pocket, you can get a loan, do a project that's actually cash flow positive for the next 20 years. Let's go to the next item. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, the governor of Pennsylvania signed a bill to put that into law. I think the legislature tried to overturn it or overturn the legislation actually, and they didn't have enough votes to do that. This is a program that puts a carbon cap on large utilities, and they're able to sell, if they're able to reduce their emissions below their cap, they can sell those credits to others. And so companies that are finding cost-effective ways to reduce their carbon output, they're going to look to invest money in more technology to reduce their carbon output because they can monetize it by putting it out on the open market. And these programs tend to raise a lot of money. The estimate for the state of Pennsylvania is that about $300 million could be raised to fund energy efficiency, renewable energy, and even job training for people in coal regions that might lose their jobs as we use less fossil fuels. 188 million tons of carbon per year is the estimate for savings once this program hits its peak. This program should start providing funding to the state of Pennsylvania sometime in 2022. So it's not that far off. Next slide, and I think Lindsay is on this.
Sure. So we want to highlight some case studies and some use of that revenue that Paul described based on some other states that are participating in RGGI. So in New Hampshire, there was a business owner that was able to solicit funding from the RGGI program to support energy efficiency improvements to his business building. That was able to provide LED lighting as well as weatherization to improve the building envelope and reduce the heating and cooling of the building. He was able to gain over 50% of the total cost of the project, making his only paying about $10,000 for the whole project. So it was really helpful for business owners to support energy efficiency projects. Delaware is also a participating state in RGGI. They use the majority of their revenue collected from the program towards a nonprofit known as the Sustainable Energy Utility, which supports energy efficiency and clean energy projects, mostly through providing low interest loans to different entities like schools, businesses, nonprofits, school, and as well as local government. So once this revenue is available in 2022, it should provide a really great funding source for clean energy and energy efficiency projects. So we're very excited to see Pennsylvania joining RGGI. So some other initiatives we wanted to highlight as part of the advocacy. The main one is the Radnor Clean Energy Champions. As Kate mentioned earlier, this work is not simple and will require a lot of collective effort. So one way that we're calling on individuals who are really interested in supporting is by joining the Radnor Clean Energy Champions, which is a volunteer group to support advocacy initiatives. In the report, it does include action-specific initiatives for each of the advocacy opportunities that Paul had mentioned. So definitely check that out if you're interested. We think that building a brand through the Radnor Clean Energy Champion will really elevate the program and the legitimacy while cultivating a community within like-minded individuals in the township working towards this common goal. So later on in the presentation, we'll have an opportunity for you to sign up if you're interested. So keep an eye on that. We also wanted to highlight community solar, which is another state level legislation that's gaining a lot of traction right now. Community solar is an arrangement to allow residents and business owners to subscribe to a shared renewable energy system, like a large solar farm, rather than investing in an individual array for individual customers. The main benefit of community solar is that this model provides access to customers who might not be left out of a traditional renewable energy investment, like residents and business owners who may not have the appropriate roof or land space for a solar array, or who don't have the high upfront cost to invest in an individual array. Community solar makes renewable energy more accessible and more equitable. And right now there's active state level legislation to pass and allow for community solar in the Commonwealth. So we definitely hope there's some advocacy around this legislation to make it a reality in the state. And then here we have many initiatives for supporting the Ready for 100 goals in the built environment. So I'll go through, there's a lot in here and we have some case studies in a little bit, so I'll just do a high level overview of all of them. But the initiatives here relate to the built environment, including existing and new development, as well as residential and commercial opportunities. So for existing homes, the main initiatives that can be taken right now is getting a home energy audit in your home to identify capital investments, as well as some operational changes you can do to save energy in your home. There's some financial incentives that are available in the appendix, so we'll go over that in a little bit too. For commercial properties, multifamily and mixed use, there's definitely a lot of initiatives to improve the energy performance. For municipal ordinance, we recommend that the township require benchmarking for the applicable buildings, which would require property owners to report their annual and energy use to the township to create more awareness of how much energy the buildings are using, as well as requiring commercial property owners to do an energy audit to identify what's some energy savings projects. For community action, we want to highlight the importance of fuel switching for large institutional stakeholders in the township, which will help them plan out for long-term investments in electrification efforts, which are more cost prohibitive on a large scale. So we want to highlight the importance of that and planning ahead, since this will be more cost effective. Partnership opportunity for the existing commercial buildings. Initiative there is green leasing, which is a financial arrangement to share the benefits of energy savings project between landlords and tenants to have a shared benefit. So it's a good financing strategy to make sure that everyone's capturing the savings from those types of investments. For renewable energy in existing buildings, there's an opportunity to implement a solarized Radner program, which makes solar energy a lot more accessible. For community action, these are more education to spread awareness of, but there's an opportunity to buy green energy through RECs, or renewable energy credits. And this allows customers to purchase RECs, which are generated based on renewable electricity. So rather than investing in a renewable energy system, you can rather just purchase RECs to support renewable electricity. Another community action could be renewable energy purchasing agreements, which is a financing structure for, ideally for large electricity customers. They could enter in a power purchase agreement, which is an arrangement between an electricity customer and a third-party developer. The third-party developer would design, build, and own a solar array, and then through a long contract, about 20 years, would actually sell the electricity to a large customer. And this is great because the customer is not on the hook for the upfront costs and is able to forecast out the electricity costs over the 20-year period. So it makes solar energy and supporting renewable energy a lot more accessible. And finally, for new construction, you can encourage high performance new construction. So making sure that new buildings utilize energy efficiency technology, maximize the use of electrification. And also for the more ambitious developer, you can do net zero construction. Net zero buildings are incredibly energy efficient, use the minimum amount of energy needed to operate a building, and maximize their use of electrification. And the net zero part means that they're able to generate all the electricity on site through renewable energy. So they're essentially net zero with their energy use.
So I'm going to go into a few case studies of everything that Lindsay just talked about. Some of these concepts may be new to everyone that's here tonight. So case studies are a great way to understand how these actions would actually play out in the real world. And I also want to mention that there are plenty more case studies within the plan if you want to read more about how this renewable energy and conservation plan would look in the real world. So I'll just breeze through these so you all get a sense for what transformation looks like within each sector. So first we have the residential sector, where, as we talked about earlier, you're gonna wanna work up the energy period. So start by a pyramid. So start by addressing your energy consumption. We talked with a local homeowner who signed up for a free Pico audit to address his energy consumption. And through that, he set his thermostat back 8 to 10 degrees during unoccupied times, which saved him enough money to be able to afford high efficiency electric heat pumps when when he needed to replace his failing oil heater. And now, since his house is all electrified, he's ready for rooftop solar. And then in the commercial sector, we're recommending, as Lindsay touched on, the benchmarking ordinance. This ordinance was passed in 2012 in Philadelphia, where it's seen a lot of success. Since it's been passed, participating buildings have achieved a 12% reduction in total greenhouse gas emissions and 5% reduction in overall energy use. And this is all in buildings over 50,000 square feet. And in Radner, we're recommending this for buildings over 10,000 square feet. You know, the saying goes that you can't manage what you don't measure. So even just by measuring these, the annual energy use of buildings, they were able to go from that data and make adjustments pretty simply and usually at a low cost. I also wanted to highlight a recommendation that we have for the township to address its energy use, not only for the township to save money, but also to lead the way for other entities in the township to take advantage of energy audits and pursue low to no cost options to reduce their energy consumption and improve energy efficiency. A previous Pico audit identified the potential for 28 to 38% energy use reductions and 29% cost savings at 3 township-owned buildings. We also recommended the Solarized Radner program, which is a collective community PV or solar photovoltaic purchasing program that is done at the community level. It's been done with great success at at a few places in the region, including Philadelphia and Media. And with Solarized Greater Media, they installed 34 solar arrays through their program, adding 300 kilowatts of solar energy, which is fantastic. And that was across the residential and commercial sector. They put some solar panels on some small businesses. And Solarized Philly also has a great program where they have a solar savings grant program for those who may not, low to middle income folks who may not be able to typically afford a rooftop solar array. And that saves them money on their energy bills in the end. So it's a win-win. We also did this case study when we were writing the plan. We got news of a proposal at the township for a new development. And we thought this would be a great way to reimagine what housing developments are going to look like in this transition towards a renewable energy future and an electrified future. So you can read in the plan that we recommended a bunch of strategies for ways that these houses could take advantage of the latest technology in renewable energy and how developers can market themselves and really distinguish themselves among other developers with developing net zero or even just high efficiency homes.
We are running a little short on time, but I wanted to add something to that as I want to leave time for questions. And so we have a few more slides to go through. Some of these things that we're recommending have some barriers to them. So this one seemed like a great opportunity, and it still might be, to have the developer come in and do geothermal in all the houses and high insulation values so that you don't have to heat or cool it too much, and solar array on the property so that they get most of their energy from solar. But the barriers are that when a developer puts in a new development, Pico runs electric lines, natural gas lines sometimes through the development, and they do that without cost. All they require is that a certain amount of energy be purchased from them, and they don't charge the developer. So now if a developer is doing the right thing and is investing in geothermal and insulation and solar for his project, not only does he incur those costs, but then he has to pay for all the Pico infrastructure that he normally doesn't have to. And so that is a barrier that needs to be worked out. And there are a lot of those throughout the energy markets. And we just need to keep working on it and come up with solutions for these things.
So as part of our plan, we also put together a few resources that we hope will help the township achieve or implement the strategies. One of the resources providing a big database of financing and grant and rebate opportunities, that are mainly for energy efficiency and clean energy for all sectors within the township. Since capital costs and return on investment are essentially the biggest considerations for these types of projects, we hope everyone here will use these and leverage these to increase project implementation and make projects more accessible. We did want to highlight another database that's provided in one of the appendices for recognition and certification programs to reward high performing buildings. This is a really great marketing incentive to encourage improved energy performance in buildings. Oftentimes these certifications can also be baked into financial lending programs to allow for lower interest rates for borrowers. So we just definitely wanted to highlight the importance and legitimacy of a lot of these certifications. There's a range of certification types depending on the building and associated documentation. So definitely visit the appendice for some more information about that. And then switching gears a little bit, no pun intended, for switching to the transportation sector. So transportation accounts for about 30% of the total energy use in the township. So it's a really high priority for implementing some of the strategies. Fortunately, the market is going towards more electric vehicles. I'm sure you all saw the commercial of Will Ferrell in the Super Bowl talking about GM going to all electric by 2035. You really don't get more mainstream than that. So what a lot of the initiatives that the township can take are supporting that development and providing more resources to provide the infrastructure. So the initiatives that can be taken there are leading by example and converting the municipal fleet to all electric, providing the permitting and zoning regulations to support this development, as well as also emphasizing transit-oriented development, which is encouraging more walking and pedestrian accessibility. And it is included in the report, the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission actually identified different areas within the township, which are really good candidates for transit-oriented development or TOD areas.
I won't talk about carbon offsets for too long. I just want to highlight how they can be a great supplement to all the actions in this plan while the renewable energy transition is taking place. So for example, we interviewed Central Baptist Church in Radner who are doing great. They're reducing their energy, giving out free LED light bulbs to churchgoers. They have a solar array on their roof. And on top of all of that, they're using carbon offsets to reduce emissions or offset emissions from the transportation of churchgoers to and from church and on their various trips. So just wanted to highlight that, and you can read more about carbon offsets in the plan. Also won't take too much time on this because there's a lot more information about it in the plan, but wanted to highlight some key points from the impact graphs that we produced. This one shows the renewable energy measures that would meet the electricity demand for 2035. And as you can see, this is a doable goal. So this is a really important message from these graphs that this can be done. It's going to take a lot of effort at, as you can see, both the state and local levels. But also this really needs to be reevaluated pretty regularly, hopefully annually, or at least every 5 years, because these technological advancements and market changes are really going to dictate how quickly and how easy it will be for Radner to make these changes. This is the energy efficiency graph as well. As you can see, the bulk of energy efficiency measures are going to be made at the township level, including energy auditing and retuning as the primary source of reduction in electricity use. So wanted to highlight that as a motivation to, not just focus on state level advocacy, because while that is super important, so much can be done at the local level as well. And you can see more graphs in the plan that reflect measures and what progress looks like right now, but it's all estimates, just to give a disclaimer there.
Okay, so our recommendations, I just want to get close to winding things up here. We're actually in the process of writing a resolution that is going to be presented to the Board of Commissioners in Radnor on Monday night. And this is kind of an outline for it, but we're still finalizing it, and we'll submit that this week for their consideration. And we're hoping that things go forward quickly and that we're able to start implementing some of the elements of the plan right away. Let's go ahead to the next slide. I think one of you was going to talk.
Sure. So here, this slide shows just the next step based on the major stakeholders that we identified for the plan. So as Paul mentioned, the Board of Commissioners are going to be a crucial piece of the puzzle to achieve the goals. So we outlined some of the next steps: accepting the plan, leading by example by implementing these strategies in the township-owned facilities, passing ordinances to support these, like benchmarking and retuning, as well as assessing funding for providing support and programmatic support for this plan through a potential sustainability director or on-call consultant. The green team, as we discussed, is super vital in making this happen and has such good passion and dedication. So the next step that we identified for them are working with the Board of Commissioners to identify the priority elements and strategies of the plan, cultivating the Green Energy Championship Group, initiating partnerships with some similar organizations in the region to implement the strategies, as well as identify ways of spreading awareness and education of this plan and the importance of doing this work. Individuals and organizations, a lot of the folks here tonight, I'm sure you're excited about how you can help. So the next steps that we identified are committing to be a green energy champion, taking advantage of high-level, low-cost energy assessments in your home or your business to identify some energy savings opportunities, as well as a way to save some money, as well as taking advantage of the funding and grant opportunities. So definitely check out that report and see those resources that are available. I'll pass it over to Kate to take us home.
Great. So yeah, just to reemphasize what Lindsay stated, even if you're not from Radnor and you're on this call, there are so many steps that individuals and businesses can take. So we've recommended a few here: reading the plan, forwarding the plan to a friend, applying for a grant, taking a look at the appendices that we provided that show some really great resources for financial and certification efforts, taking advantage of energy audits when you can, and of course, staying tuned for updates about Ready for 100. At this time, I'd like to see if we can get the Google form thrown in the chat. If Lindsay or Robin, you could throw that in the chat. This is the form that Lindsay referenced earlier, where there's a quick question about if you would be willing to sign a commitment, such as the one that we recommended earlier, to be an active participant in the township's goals. And it also asks if you would like to receive communication in the future about Ready for 100 efforts. So was that able to be put in the chat? Okay, right, great. So Robin just sent it in the chat. And if you could take a moment to fill out that form before we get to questions, that would be amazing.
Wait, Kate, given that we are a little short on time, I wonder if we could start with questions and people can just be filling it out as they listen.
Yeah.
We have an initial question from Regina. I'm going to mess up your last name, but Majersek. That's on the issue. Can you go ahead and ask your question about existing building renovation? I think I'm unmuting you. There we go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Yeah, so if implementing the plan, I just was noticing that in the business proposal, it was to take a look at the entire package, not to phase in elements of modification. So would that be for new construction or would that be for existing buildings? It wasn't clear to me.
Yeah, that was definitely under the heading of new construction, because what you don't want to do is, what you don't want to do is put in something that's 80% efficient or that's using natural gas or oil, knowing that you're going to have to replace it if you're going to meet these goals. So we don't want to take any steps backwards. So anything new needs to be meeting the end goal of the program.
So how would that apply to existing buildings, et cetera? Would all of this just be moving forward, or would there be any requirements for current stock?
There's absolutely strategies in the plan for current stock. In fact, that's probably the biggest area that we cover in the plan, because 30 years from now, the buildings that are using energy, most of them are already built. We're not going to double the size of our developed land in the next 30 years here in Radnor Township. So it's important to address those existing buildings.
Can we go to Richard Cole's question? He had one on the building construction trades.
Yes, so I was reading in the various places in the internet as far as like the building trades and the influence that they have in terms of modifying. I don't know the language that they use for this, but basically I guess they have a lot of influence in terms of changes that are made in construction around renewables. And if it presents any kind of a barrier to having new construction projects basically go green.
They do have influence, and the builders actually have influence as well. But the trend right now is that every 3 years when they update the building code, it's significantly more stringent on energy use than the previous code. So the 2018 code was about 30% more efficient than the 2007 code. And so there's, or 2006 code. So there's this trend to move things towards net zero, and that's supported by the American Institute of Architects as well as other engineering organizations. There has been pushback from builders on implementing those codes because they feel it makes the cost of their homes higher, but it also makes those homes more desirable and reduces the cost, societal costs of climate change and other health issues with air pollution.
We have a question from Eric Langenmeyer. Let me see if I can find you and unmute you on the technological improvements for energy efficiency. Can you unmute yourself, Scott?
Okay, yeah, hi. Yeah, my question is really goes along with what Richard Cole's question in the previous question was, and that is that and what the speaker, whose name I suddenly blanked out on, is, I apologize for that, is that there's a lot of existing housing stock. And when I look at, say, Home Depot, where I don't go anymore anyway, but 15 years ago versus now, it seems like the same sort of stuff is available with regards to insulation. And so I'm just wondering, is there anyone or any research that's being done on upping the technology abilities of materials that are used to increase the insulation and energy efficiency of homes?
I'm thinking I'm going to jump on this, and Kate or Lindsay, if you have anything to add. But yeah, that technology is always being worked on. I know Saint-Gobain has their East Coast or US headquarters here in Chester County. And they're always developing new materials for everything from soundproofing to better insulation for both residential and commercial. So there's a lot more use of spray foam insulation now than there used to be. The typical bat insulation, while it insulates from certain thermal transfer through the materials, it doesn't fill in gaps. So you end up with infiltration into your house. And that's a huge deal. And if we can find a way to insulate those homes better, and the new codes are requiring more, but getting into that existing building stock is the harder nut to crack, because people aren't necessarily able to afford to do major upgrades to insulation, although it is going to make their home more comfortable. If they're replacing a heating and air conditioning unit, and if they've just added a lot of insulation, we actually do sizing studies for heating and air conditioning, and it's based on the insulation, and it's typically commercial buildings, but it's based on how much insulation is in place and other loads on the building, other thermal loads, how much insulation in the roof, what type of windows, what's the U value or the transmission of heat, thermal transfer through the windows. If you can maximize those, you can actually buy a smaller heating and air conditioning system, because you're not heating or cooling the outdoors as much as you are when you don't have good insulation. So there are opportunities. I took advantage of a grant program to upgrade my house, a low interest loan program that I was able to borrow at 0.99%. And that's what some of this funding that we've identified is there to buy down interest rates so that you can do a project and your monthly payments in many cases will be about equal to what your energy savings are. So you're making your house more comfortable and you're using less energy. But it's not, getting to 100% renewable is not easy. But I do want to say that we need to aim high, and that's the highest aim we can have. And if we miss and we come in at 91%, that's really good. Where if we say we could never get better than 50%, and that's what we're aiming for, maybe we get it, but we probably don't go over it. So, there's a lot of elements in the plan that will take some work and rely on new technology coming down the road as well. But we tried to identify actions to take now as part of this.
Thank you, Paul.
Paul, this is Robin. I wanted to address a couple of questions that have appeared in the chat that relate to how we approached socializing the planning with community residents and stakeholders and with the township itself. And just after the township had signed the contract with you, we went into shutdown mode, and the plans we had to do in-person community stakeholder group discussions and do other education and solicit ideas from community members that had to be really upended. And so I think just to respond to those questions, what we have ended up with is a plan that really sort of invites community leaders to engage in helping to spread the word and enlist people's engagement. Also a very important point, and thanks to Mainline Health, which is also profiled in the plan, there's a question about community partnerships and with having businesses step up and do their part. And we're very appreciative that they have been profiled in the plan for all of the work that they have been doing, sort of showing the way. And it's by example and demonstration that we hope a lot of the progress can be made within the larger business community. We had one question, we're just at the top of the hour, we just have one question about the Pico time of use tariffs. If Steve, you want to quickly ask your question.
Sure. So Pico is going to roll out in September a voluntary plan where it's going to be more electricity be more expensive in the middle of the day and very cheap at night. Have you guys considered that, or in this plan, or what are your thoughts on that?
No, go ahead, finish.
No, I just wonder what your thoughts are on that in terms of Radner's plan.
It's still using the same amount of energy. It's just shifting when you use it. So maybe if you're using more at night when the base load is mainly provided by nuclear or other means. But during the day you'll have solar. As we develop more solar, that'll be offsetting some of that time of use concern. And so we might end up that the new peaks become when we get a polar vortex or something and it's at 7 o'clock in the morning in February, when things are really cold. But shifting the load is good for the grid and it's good for the cost for people, but it doesn't necessarily reduce the environmental impact of using energy. So we didn't have a specific line item about it, but it's one of the things that you use as a tool. If you're saving money by doing that, then you can use that money to invest in other elements of your building. And Robin, I just wanted to add on to something you said about the community engagement. And if you wanted to tell the story about the Radnor School District and what the students did to get them on board.
Sarah Pilling, who's on the call, can describe it as well, but we were blessed to have some Radnor High School students join, I think, our first Ready for 100 community meeting way back before we had even developed a proposed resolution for the township. And they just stepped up and got very involved in trying to help our efforts, and then undertook to approach the school district and embark on an effort to get them to pass a similar resolution, which they have. And so there's a huge opportunity for partnership between the school district and Radnor Township. And Ali and Becca, who are just partners in this whole effort, deserve a lot of credit for the effort they built at the high school.
And Robin, can I add, they worked very closely with the Sierra Club's Climate Parents Project. They had 2 mentors from Sierra Club. So we actually were not part of it at all. It was part of their own initiative. And I would recommend to any school district where the kids want to get involved, and it's quite a growth experience for them, to reach out to the Sierra Club and learn more about the Climate Parents Project. because as I said, they provided mentors. These two young women, we didn't know about it, took themselves to Hartford, Connecticut for a weekend to learn more about it. I mean, these young women have enormous initiative, which will stand them in very good stead in life, particularly getting into college next year. They're both graduating seniors.
Yeah,
Robert, just to
really
clarify,
inspiring.
did you say before the Board of Supervisors approved the RF100 resolution?
No. It was after the township passed it. The kids were involved in the same time we were. And they just took enormous initiative, but the Sierra Club Climate Parents Program really helped them.
We are at the top of the hour, and I know there are additional questions in the chat, but we'll be trying to tackle those afterwards and get back to you. We do want to thank everybody for joining us, and we hope, to the questions about whether or not the plan will be available, it's already posted on Radnor Township's website. So
can I make a quick acknowledgement? Mm-hmm. I just want to acknowledge the great work that Diane Herron did on this plan. She was recently elected to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives in the 156th district. I've worked with Diane for 11 years, and it's a great role for her, and she's going to be advocating for all of these programs that we listed here at the state level.
So thank you everybody for attending. This is just a wonderful way to begin to spread the word, both in Radnor and in other municipalities, that if we all work together, we can pull this off. And thank you, Paul, and Lindsay, and Kate.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
And good night.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Have a good night.